Welcome back to Kino Christmas, where all throughout the month of December in the Kino Cave it is Christmas time. It's one of my favourite times of year, and I can't wait to talk to you about more Kino as the month goes on. Today, we're covering the Santa Claus 2. So, after my extremely unhinged and insane video about the Santa Claus, I'm here to you with the Santa Claus 2. And yes, I'm going to be expanding on my theory that Santa dies every single year, because there are even more examples in this movie that contribute to that theory. So, obviously, as with the previous film, this film was always on TV around Christmas time when I was a kid, and I think I remember liking this one the least when I was a kid. I don't know why. I always just wanted to watch the first and third one, and this one was kind of forgotten about for me, but I'm not sure, I might prefer this one to the previous. I think that this one was funnier than the previous movie, because god damn, there's a lot of adult jokes in this, one of which is behind me. So yeah, a big reason why I think this movie is funnier is the Robot Santa. Everything to do with Robot Santa is so weird and insane and really, really funny. Like, God, he's a drunk, he's a tyrant, he's basically Robot Hitler Santa. Fun for the whole fucking family. Yeah, Robot Santa is hilarious, if nothing else for the fact that he's a drunk robot Hitler Santa. Okay, getting into genuine criticisms of the movie. I like Scott's character arc, that he goes looking for a Mrs. Claus, a wife. It's kind of really unbelievable that he has to find a wife in 28 days, because that's not nearly enough time to meet someone, become close with them, and then fall in love with them and marry them. But I guess this is also a world where this happens, so I guess I can't judge the movie too harshly now, can I? In all seriousness, that arc is fine. Weirdly enough, I think I like it more for Carol's character arc than it is for Scott's. For Scott, it really is just, I need to find a wife, and I guess I'm just falling in love with the person that I previously hated, because, it's classic, it's nostalgic, it's wholesome, it's cheesy. And if it ain't broke, I guess, just do the love story where people who are total opposites learn to love each other through some commonality or something like that, and they learn and grow from each other, and yada yada yada. Yeah, so I don't know. I like it, but it's not great either. I think there's some standout scenes from it, but otherwise, it's I could take or leave it, really. I didn't really like Charlie in this movie. I get what they're doing, where, man, in fairness, the actor, Eric Lloyd, I believe his name is, he does really well playing Charlie as this kid, this troubled teenager, and he's acting out, and he's kind of just he's spraying graffiti, and that's not nice and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know, that kind of character arc is just left by the wayside for a lot of the film, which I think is my big problem with it. And it's weird because, I like the beginning of it where he's acting out and spraying graffiti, and I like the ending of it where you realize that it's because he kind of hates his dad for the fact that his dad is the coolest thing in the world. Like, he's literally Santa, and yet he can't tell anybody, and nobody can know about it. So it's a decent character arc, but it's just not fleshed out very well in the film. Easily the best character arc in this film is with Carol. Mean high school principal who doesn't want anything to do with Christmas. She's kind of forgotten about what it's like to be a kid. She's basically the way Scott was at the beginning of the first film. And Scott, or Santa, I guess, throughout the film helps to make her realize that it's okay to be a kid every once in a while, and it's okay to remember what it was like to be that age and to love Christmas. And we all have the little kid still inside us that just wants to feel what it was like to feel weightless as a child, and to not have to worry about anything, and have Christmas be the most exciting thing for you. And I think this is more personal to me, but I think Christmas is the perfect time to remember that, those times when you were a child and feel that nostalgia. And that's what Carol learns throughout the film, and I think it's actually handled really, really well, especially in the sleigh ride scene when she's relating to Scott about her, experiences as a child at Christmas time, especially when she talks about how her parents would always fight, but on Christmas they would make an effort to make Christmas a happy day for her rather than just another day where her parents are fighting. So all that is really, really good. Honestly, it, like, jokes aside, because yeah, there's going to be a lot of weird sarcastic humor from me in this film because of how insane it is, but on a serious note, that's a really well written character arc for Carol. So there's one joke in this film that had me on my knees laughing, and it's at the very beginning of the film. Well, not at the very, well, there's some pretty funny stuff at the beginning as well when they're like trying, where they almost shoot down a plane. But there's one joke in the film that absolutely floored me, and it's towards the beginning, and the elves are like, there's a problem with the naughty list. There's a problem. They say, Santa, Charlie's on the naughty list, and Santa says, Charlie Sheen? What? I thought he straightened out. That Charlie Sheen joke just fucking floored me. Because I forgot that joke was in the movie. Oh my god, that is hilarious. Charlie Sheen and his fucking tiger blood just scraping his way into this movie. And obviously this was like 2002 or whatever. And Charlie Sheen didn't straighten out. He was still on the naughty list for quite a while, actually. Oh, Charlie Sheen. Charlie, I love Charlie Sheen. Like, he's I'm sure he's doing a lot better now than he was around 2008. So that, yeah, but Jesus Christ, that joke killed me. And another little kind of anecdote, not an anecdote, another little point, the Easter Bunny is the most terrifying thing in the history of cinema. God, I hope you can't hear that rain. But yeah, the Easter Bunny is the worst thing that's ever existed in the history of cinema. It's awful, it's horrifying. I don't want that thing, like, breaking into my house and leaving little shit eggs all over the place. Stay away from my house, Easter Bunny. Okay, the rain seems to have calmed down, so hopefully that won't be an issue anymore. So, I often relate to Robot Santa. Not in that way. I relate to Robot Santa in the sense that he had an insane idea in a drunken state, and that happens to me often. It's not an evil, tyrant, fascist idea that I have, but I often have weird ideas when I'm drunk, and then I wake up the next morning and I realize that was probably a bad idea. Should I talk about Robot Toy Santa? Because, oh my god, what is this thing? Like, I love it. I love how it's insane. I love how he's a dictator. I love how he's drunk the entire time. He's admittedly drunk the entire time. The first time he tries cocoa, he's like, I think Santa's a little buzzed. How did that get past the fucking rating system? But, Jesus. This is a children's film. You know what? It doesn't even matter whether or not it's a children's film. This is Santa Claus in fucking Nazi gear. Who thought of this? And you know what? Whoever did think of it, thank you, because it was so funny. He's just screaming at children. He's tackling kids to the ground. He's the worst. And he does tie into my theory, by the way. Okay, some bad stuff. The reindeer get really annoying after a while. Like, yeah, they make stupid noises, and, they're just like, they're like bad cartoon characters. And like, there's the one that's in training as well, and he can't do shit. Yeah, it's not great, and it's not very funny. And yeah, the special effects aren't good. Like, there's a lot of bad CGI, a lot of bad magic stuff. It was the early 2000s and all that, so it's just the way it was. Although the makeup on the Robot Santa, I have to say, is pretty great, actually. Like, he genuinely looks like a giant toy, which is pretty cool. But yeah, there's some pretty bad CGI in this movie, too. So overall, I thought this was a very funny movie with a surprising amount of adult jokes. Robot Hitler Santa. Um, and yeah, I mean, the plot isn't great, but the jokes are so good, and then there's the one character arc with Carol that kind of makes up for it. This is a really enjoyable movie for me. It's not good, but it's enjoyable. And I would absolutely recommend getting really, really drunk with your friends and watching this because it's just wild. If you've seen my previous video covering the first Santa Claus movie, which you should have, I have a theory that before Tim Allen took on the role of Santa, every year Santa died because he was useless, so he died by accident. He was suicidal because becoming Santa was so miserable and it was altering his life. And there's a good chance that most of the time Santa just got shot by Americans with guns. So I'm going to provide more examples from this film that contributes to said theory. For one thing, the workshop is much nicer, much bigger, and the elves seem generally a lot happier in general because, you know, there's not a death every single year. So all the elves seem generally a lot happier because they're not getting the morbid Santa dying every year. So that's just, they're just in general a lot happier because Santa is a lot nicer as well. Santa also seems to just know his way around the place more, and he contributes a lot more to the making of the toys, more so than the elves and Bernard. Bernard kind of takes a back seat in this film a lot of the time because, you know, he doesn't need to be in charge all the time anymore because Santa's there, and Santa's not dying every single year. Moving on to that, a big contributor to my theory is the whole Mrs. Claus situation. There's a quote in the film, this is a direct quote: "The single most important detail in the history of Christmas." They forgot to tell Santa that he had to find a wife, despite it being, and I quote, "the single most important detail in the history of Christmas." They forgot to tell him for like 8 years. Or like, it wasn't 8, it was like 5 or 6 years. Until not having a wife is causing Santa to not be Santa anymore and causing Christmas to die effectively. How would they have forgotten that for so long? Because Santa dies every single year and they've not had to think about that for a while. That is why it's only brought up now, because it's not been brought up in centuries. Another thing, the legendary figures. They're not even mentioned in the first film, even though I think they have annual meetings. So I think that the legendary figures were not in the first film because they just don't bother with Santa, because there's a different Santa every single year. Whereas the legendary figures are consistent throughout all of time and space, I guess. But now, since Tim Allen has lasted a few years, he's once again let into this like council of legendary figures, and he's allowed to have meetings again because he's consistently the Santa for now. There's kind of a throwaway line in this movie. I think the Easter Bunny says it, where he says that children are 86% happier since Tim Allen became Santa Claus. That is an insane amount. 86%. That is crazy. How terrible, how miserable were children before Tim Allen became Santa, that him just lasting longer, like him just being a decent Santa, has caused kids to be 86% happier. Like 40%, okay, that makes sense. 20% probably makes more sense. But 86, that is crazy. And that is because a lot of kids weren't getting the right presents, or not getting any presents at all from Santa, because Santa never lasted longer than a year and he kept dying. I have a theory as well about drunk toy Hitler Santa. I think that he is what the other Santas were. Because Tim Allen eventually embraced being Santa and used his life experience through being a father, and also him understanding that Santa's more a marketing tactic rather than an actual real person, like a useful person. So I think his understanding of Santa is what led him to be so good at it. And the toy Santa is actually what the previous Santas were kind of like. Because the toy Santa, it's said in the film that he has most of Santa's memories. So I think that the stuff that's left out is Scott's actual memories, and this toy Santa is like, it's like if AI generated a Santa. Like if you put in all the data into an AI generator, it would spit out something like this, where it's just obsessed with the naughty nice thing. You know, kids that are naughty get cold, kids that are nice get presents. Obsessed with the rules, obsessed with the milk and cookies and the cocoa and all that kind of thing. And it's all very literal and very like, it's Terminator shit like. So I think that is like the concept of Santa. This is the Santa personality without the Tim Allen Home Improvement Santa personality. I told you this was going places. There's another throwaway line in this film where Charlie, you know, Tim Allen's son, says that there's never been a better Santa than you. This is correct. That quote is absolutely 100% accurate to the film. There's never been a better Santa than Tim Allen Santa, because Tim Allen Santa managed to not die and actually enjoyed being Santa rather than wanting to hang himself by the Christmas lights. Now, I think I mentioned this in my review of the first film, but I think a lot of kids that got the wrong presents stopped believing in Santa, and kids that were consistently getting the correct presents stopped believing in Santa because other kids bullied them into not believing in Santa. Carol is an example of one of those kids. Because Carol believed in Santa with all her heart, she was always getting the right presents, because, a large majority of children have to still be getting the right stuff. But kids at school eventually bullied her into believing that Santa wasn't real, and then her parents also told her to grow up and stop believing in Santa. Because the kids that bullied her were kids who got the wrong presents from the shit Santas. And her parents are similar in that way, where they either got the wrong presents or didn't get any presents, or they were bullied by kids when they were small, and that led to Carol not believing in Santa. So she is an example of a kid that got the right presents, but she was bullied into not believing in Santa by everyone around her. At the office Christmas party, Scott makes up for previous Santa's mistakes by giving the teachers, who are now like boring adults who hate their lives, giving them the presents that they didn't get as children, therefore making up for previous Santa's uselessness. I told you this theory was going places. I told you this works. This works. As of recording this video, I've not analyzed the third film to see does it coincide with this theory. It might all fall apart by the third film, but I'm telling you, this is an airtight theory. You have no idea how much thinking I've put into this, because like I said in my previous video, I came up with this theory over the summer while I was working a job where there wasn't a lot of thinking involved. And when you're working a job with your hands where you don't really have to think about much, your mind just wanders and just starts thinking about anything. And I had watched the Mr. Sunday Movies Caravan of Garbage videos on Santa Claus just in my recreation time, and listened to the audio versions of them, and I started to think of this theory in my head, and I've been thinking about it for the last 6 months. This works. This fucking works. Maybe the third film will ruin it, but I don't think it will, because I remember that movie pretty well. I watched it all the time as a kid. You can ask my parents, you can ask my brother, I wouldn't watch it non-stop. I'm telling you, this is a solid theory. Up yours, Matt Pat. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this mess of a video, and the previous mess of a video, and the next mess of a video. Subscribe to see that video. Leave a like on this one if you enjoyed. Leave a comment. Maybe you found a hole in my theory. I would love to know. I would love for you to break down this thing that I've accomplished. Or just tell me about the movie. Did you enjoy the Santa Claus Part 2 when you were a kid? Did you enjoy the trilogy when you were a kid? Do you have any nostalgia for it? If you've not seen it in years, I would recommend going back to it because this one's pretty fucking funny. If nothing else for that Charlie Sheen joke, like, come on. You gotta at least rewatch that part because that was really good. So, subscribe to see more from Kino Christmas and more from the Kino Cave in general. I am so looking forward to Christmas now. It's going to be great. And Merry Christmas to you all, or Happy Holidays to those of you who don't celebrate. We'll get to that.